Indonesia and Singapore, market headlines is ready to provide you a number of information from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Lantai, and this is Market Headlines. And as viewers, Finance Minister Sri Mulyani said that refinancing for COVID-19 vaccine was one of the themes discussed by the leader of the group of G20 major economies. G20 members also pledged to do their utmost to ensure all nations have fair access to COVID-19 vaccines.
According to the Finance Minister, the high cost of obtaining vaccines is a challenge, especially for the developing countries. On the other hand, vaccines are needed to help the process of recovering economic conditions that have been hit by the pandemic. The G20 countries will do its best to ensure affordable and equitable access to the COVID-19 vaccines for everyone. The leaders said in a declaration released after the two-day virtual meeting chaired by the Saudi Arabia, and this aims to cushion the global economy from the impact of coronavirus pandemic.
Dibahas mengenai bagaimana negara-negara, terutama negara berkembang, bisa mendapatkan akses vaksin. Disinilah letak peranan dari lembaga-lembaga multilateral menjadi sangat penting. Bagaimana mereka bisa memberikan dukungan pendanaan bagi negara-negara berkembang atau negara miskin sehingga mereka mendapatkan vaksin.
G20 leaders, including Indonesia, stand united in convictions that coordinated global actions, solidarity, and multilateral cooperations are more necessary today than ever to overcome the current challenges. From Jakarta, Rahaja Pakmo for IDX Channel.
And as viewers, in the other hand, G20 leaders announced on Sunday that Indonesia will hold the summit of the high-profile grouping in 2022.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Retno Marsudi announced that Indonesia will hold the presidency of G20 summit in 2022, and therefore Indonesia will host the G20 summit in 2022. After Saudi Arabia hosting a successful Riyadh summit and its contribution to G20 process, next countries to host the event will be Italy, Indonesia, India, and Brazil. G20 leaders look forward to the next meeting in Italy in 2021, Indonesia in 2022, India in 2023, and Brazil in 2024. At the beginning, Indonesia should hold a meeting by 2023, but it is changed. Retno said this change was because in 2023, Indonesia will hold the chairmanship in the Asian Summit. For this reason, Indonesia held discussions with India and proposed the G20 summit presidency to be advanced in 2020. From all sources, IDX Channel.
Moving on to the next coverage, viewers, the government explains that the pandemic situations makes pursuing state revenue targets even more difficult. And the finance minister ensures that in 2020 tax revenue target will not be achieved due to the current difficult economic conditions.
Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati admitted that this year's tax revenue is difficult to achieve. This is due to the many pressures in various economic sectors caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Minister of Finance said the risk of not achieving tax revenue was driven by conditions from depressed corporations and communities where until the end of September 2020, tax revenues had only reached 892.4 trillion rupiah, or 63.5% of the target of 1,404.5 trillion rupiah. When compared to the same period last year, then tax revenue contracted by 14.1%.
Ini adalah penerimaan perpajakan yang rendah karena memang mengalami kontraksi. Dan ini pun masih ada resiko tidak tercapai karena ternyata kondisi dari korporasi maupun masyarakat betul-betul tertekan seperti yang terlihat di dalam statistik kita yang kita lihat saat ini.
The pressure of tax revenue has also caused the state budget to experience a deficit of 6.34% of GDP, because at the same time government spending has increased for the sake of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. From Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo, IDX Channel.
The Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs recorded that SME sales fell by 23% during the COVID-19 pandemic. And to increase the role and sales of COVID-19 pandemic, the government will continue to focus on increasing the use of digital technology for SMEs business.
Based on a survey conducted by the Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs, MSME sales fell by 23% due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Even the survey also stated that 20% of MSMEs experienced distribution problems, followed by 90% of MSMEs experiencing capital difficulties. Not only that, difficulties in obtaining raw materials and any number of production barriers are also experienced by MSME businesses.
Melalui Kementerian Koperasi dan UKM membuat berbagai program Go Digital UMKM untuk mengikuti pola ekonomi yang terjadi saat ini, seperti pemasaran melalui laman e-brosur, pelatihan webinar series melalui eduka.ukm.id, SPAK Kampus atau kakak asuh UMKM, dan program hasil kolaborasi dengan berbagai pihak.
Responding to this, the Minister of Cooperatives and SMEs, Teten Mastuki, said that to save MSMEs in the midst of a pandemic as an economic driver, the ministry will boost digitalization for MSME to connect with the digital system. Through this step, it is hoped that MSMEs can increase sales while speeding up Indonesia's economic recovery. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX.
Market headlines will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Market hari ini sudah dibuka dan menghijau begitu. Anda ada di zona positif, akankah ini terus berlanjut?
Saya masih mencermati untuk saham-saham ini ya, tambangan, saham alam putra nih ya, asli kan kemarin belum naik, ini potensi naik.
Adikarya komitmennya kemanapun dan apapun yang akan dibangun oleh negara, kita akan siap mendukung. Kita juga saat ini punya proyek di ujung Banda Aceh dan juga punya proyek di Papua.
Saat ini lebih mudah untuk mendapatkan informasi mengenai perkembangan ekonomi dan bisnis di Indonesia dengan aplikasi IDX Channel. Mulai dari berita, makro dan mikroekonomi, politik hingga hiburan. Anda juga dapat berbagi artikel, foto, dan video ke semua platform media sosial yang Anda miliki. Beragam informasi hari ini bisa di-download di dalam aplikasi idxchannel.com. IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business, and Capital Market Channel.
Pergerakan indeks harga saham gabungan sepanjang perdagangan hari ini tertekan, level 5 ribuan kembali ditinggalkan. Bagaimana analisis Anda?
Masih ada peluang turun lebih lanjut. Kalau misalkan regionalnya memerah, nah maka tidak tertutup kemungkinan kita juga akan ketularan kan.
Dan beberapa perbankan yang diduga melakukan transaksi mencurigakan, dan semoga bisa menjadi salah satu referensi untuk Anda dan seperti apa ke depannya.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. Property industry is showing recovery sign. As a proof, the residential property price index has increased in the third quarter of 2020 with 111.2 points, or increase of 0.5% compared to the second quarter.
The Residential Property Price Survey is a quarterly survey to identify the source of inflationary pressure from the demand side and to gain information on residential property prices. It is one of the indicators to compute the asset price inflations in Indonesia. The good news is, Indonesia's residential property price index is showing uptrend. The residential property price index has increased in the third quarter of 2020 with 111.2, or an increase of 0.5% compared to the second quarter. In short, the Presidential Property Price Index, which has increased, show optimism in the property sector amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. From all sources, IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, before starting the infographic segment, I would like to tell you that Residential Property Price Survey is a quarterly survey that is conducted by the central bank. It is one of the indicators to compute the asset price of the inflations in Indonesia's housing. Even though in the third quarter it went up a little bit by 0.5%, we cannot even deny that in 2020 it is a tough year for residential property sales. And residential property sales have shown a downward trend amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. And therefore, it reflects to lower people's purchasing power despite lower mortgage interest rate. And well, I'd like to open up this infographic segment with the graphic about property sales in 2020. Here it is through your screen. We can see on how 2020 residential property sales. Begin with the small houses. In the first quarter of 2020, it is minus 42.42%. Meanwhile, in the second quarter, it went down by 14%. And then moving on to the medium house. In the first quarter, we can see that the growth has a minus 50%, while in the second quarter 2020, the number went up a little bit to be minus 40%. Meanwhile, in the large house, in the first quarter of 2020, it reached minus 14%, while in the second quarter of 2020, the number went even lower by minus 36%. And a recent survey by the central bank revealed that the combined sales of small, medium, and large houses fell in the first 6 months of the year, largely because the unfolding COVID-19 pandemic. And the medium-term outlook for the housing market remains highly uncertain, so much different than last year. The industry still booked an annual growth of 1.19% in the sales in the fourth quarter of last year. And there are certain reasons though, so let's see through the next graphic. And yes, viewers, through your screen, we can see the reasons behind declining residential property sales. First of all, it's COVID-19 pandemic. We have already seen a sharp economic contractions as a result of the necessary measures to adopted to suppress the spread of the virus. And it applied to buyers as well, as they have a tendency to hold its money. Still high mortgage loan, and then the next one is that a high down payment, rising price of building materials, which are affected by the oil price fluctuations. For your information, it's also contributed to the increase in property prices. And the locations factor also matters. The more strategic the place, the higher the price. And the last one is that, through your screen, we can see bureaucratic issue. And yes, viewers, as a booster, the government has set aside 1.5 trillion rupiah for the interest rate and down payment subsidies this year for the low-income households to enable them to purchase a house. And the relief allows low-income household to pay a mortgage annual interest rate of just 5% for a tenure of 10 years. And for Papua and West Papua residents, it's only 4% for a tenure of 20 years. And about mortgage loan, the distributions has gone sluggish for the recent months. So let's see through the next graphic. And through your screen, we can see that the mortgage distributions growth went lower as a quarter over quarter. Here it is, we can see that in the first quarter of 2019, for example, it hit 13.1%. But however, in the first quarter of 2020, it was 7.1% only. And then moving on to the second quarter of 2019, in 2020, it was in the level of 12.9%. But however, in 2020, it reached only 4.1%. We can see the significant differences in here through the mortgage distributions growth, which leads into lower people's purchasing power. While the industry relies heavily on a mortgage because the consumers who paid houses using loan around 74% in the January-March period. This is higher by nearly 3 percentage points than in September 2019, which is September to December period of last year. And specifically speaking, State-Owned Bank Tabungan Negara, or BBTN, stated that it will continue to facilitate Indonesians people to have place to live. And the target is that this state-owned bank can distribute mortgage loan up to 1.5 million trillion rupiah, by meaning 1.5 million people as of 2025. And as of September 2020, Bank BTN has distributed mortgage loan totaling 93,000 units worth 15.6 trillion rupiah. But however, the mortgage loan has been overshadowed by big potential of non-performing loan. And a non-performing loan, or NPL, is a loan which is the borrower is at default and hasn't made any scheduled payment for the principal or interest for some time. And the higher, the scarier. So let's see the conditions through the next graphic. Here it is through your screen. We can see the NPL grow by the time goes by. Here it is. We can see on how it went higher than ever. In the first quarter of 2019, the number was in 2.06%. But however, in the first quarter of 2020, it went up by 2.8%. Well, if you take a look in the second quarter of 2019, it was in 2.7%. But however, we can see through the data in here, the second quarter of 2020, the NPL went higher to be 3.2%. And the COVID-19 outbreak has boosted the increase in non-performing loans. Yes, the COVID-19 the outbreak has boosted an increase in non-performing loans for almost all credit sectors in the banking sectors. And of course, this includes mortgage loans. Not surprisingly, like other credit sectors, many mortgage debtors have applied for credit restructuring to banks and to get relief from the paying their installments. And yes, viewers, although the pandemic impact will still overshadow the global and national economy, but still we have to be optimistic that we will see the growth in residential industry. Yes, viewers, stay tuned to market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
Senang sekali saya David San Ovo dan dapat hadir menemani Anda dalam program spesial dialog webinar on TV.
Setiap minggunya kita akan membahas tema-tema yang sangat menarik. Apa kabar ibu-ibu sekalian?
Alhamdulillah baik.
Salah satu ambisi daripada Kementerian Koperasi dan UMKM bersama Spesco adalah koperasi keren, baru, digital gitu kan, yang kita bisa IT.
And yes, viewers, let's talk about the capital market conditions today. Let's take a look first at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 5,583.33, and then approaching the closing time in the first session, the index was on the level of 5,621.17. And then the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session's closing time. The index was closed at the level of 5,652.76. And in short, JCI went up 1.46%. And next, we are going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got basic industry as leader of the strengthening trend that went up 2.96%, and infrastructure that went up 2.84%, mixed industry that went up 1.38%, and manufacturer that went up 1.38%. And moving on to the top gainers and top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading sessions. BBNI went up 3.96% to the level of 5,900 rupiah per share. And we got BRPT that went up 9.42% to the level of 1,045 rupiah per share. And we got TWOR that went up 3.88% to the level of 1,070 rupiah per share, and we got Adaro that went up 6.12% to the level of 1,290 rupiah per share. And in time for the top losers for today's trading, we got Asri that went down 0.85%, and we got AISA that went down 5.59%. And we got SSIA that went down 1.69%, and we got SAME that went down 0.52%. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at a level of 14,164. Rupiah was also showing strengthening trend like JCI towards US dollar. I was closed at the level of 14,163. In summary, rupiah went up 0.07%. Consumer company Unilever Indonesia will distribute interim dividends of 3.3 trillion rupiah of its net profit for the financial year 2020.
Consumer company Unilever Indonesia will distribute interim dividends of 3.3 trillion rupiah of its net profit for the financial year 2020. Interim dividends will be distributed to Unilever shareholders whose names are listed on the shareholder register as of December 2, 2020. In an official announcement, Unilever Indonesia's management stated that the interim dividend distribution came from retained earnings for the period 30 June 2020, which the company recorded a net profit of 3.62 trillion rupiah. Meanwhile, as of September 2020, Unilever recorded a net profit of 5.44 trillion rupiah, or down by 1.27% from the same period last year, of 5.51 trillion rupiah amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The decline in profit occurred in line with the theme increase in company revenue. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Moving on to the next coverage, state-owned bank Mandiri revealed that the loan restructuring due to COVID-19 pandemic has reached 116 trillion rupiah by September 2020.
Bank Mandiri loan restructuring due to the COVID-19 pandemic has reached 116 trillion rupiah. President Director of Bank Mandiri Darmawan Junaidi stated that restructuring has been done to the most affected sectors by COVID-19 pandemic. Bank Mandiri revealed the most affected sectors are construction with restructuring value exceeded 26 trillion rupiah, wholesales and retail trade 19 trillion rupiah, and the third one is provision of accommodation and food and beverage with total restructuring hit 7 trillion rupiah. However, Darmawan said that restructuring is open to all sectors as long as the debtor is eligible for restructuring. Regarding this, Darmawan ensures that loan restructuring has helped business actors, the public, and the banking sector itself to go through the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. From all sources, IDX Channel.
The government, through the COVID-19 task force, ensures the safety and halalness of COVID-19 vaccines. And therefore, the government asks public to not afraid and hesitate to receive COVID-19 vaccine.
Together with the Indonesian Ulama Council, the COVID-19 task force ensures that the COVID-19 vaccines that will be distributed are safe and halal. Moreover, the vaccines should have passed stage 3 clinical trials and have received emergency use of authorization or EUA from the Drug and Food Examining Agency and registered at WHO. Spokesperson for the COVID-19 task force, Wicky Adrian, said that in the development of the COVID-19 vaccine, the government involved health experts and WHO to monitor and ensure that this vaccine was safe to use.
Kami meminta kepada masyarakat vaksin COVID-19. Pemerintah memastikan vaksin COVID-19 yang digunakan adalah vaksin yang aman, memiliki efektivitas, dan juga halal. Masyarakat perlu mengetahui vaksin COVID-19 yang nantinya digunakan adalah vaksin yang bakal lulus uji klinis tahap 3 dan menerima Emergency Use of Authorizations atau EUA dari Badan POM serta terdaftar di WHO.
In addition, Wicky added that the red and white vaccine is currently being developed by 6 leading universities and research institutions in Indonesia. It is hoped that the seeds of the red and white vaccine can be submitted to Bio Farma in 2021. Then Bio Farma will conduct clinical trials stage 1 to 3. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role on current economic situations, here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Kepala BKPM Lila Hadalia bahkan mendorong investor